The first thing I think is really important to make this point, and it's going to inform everything that we talk about today. The difference between a blog and a brand newsroom is the blog is usually there for the benefit of the brand. You want to talk about your products and services, but a brand newsroom, and especially with Dan's journalism background, I was a freelance journalist for many years, we are really working for the audience. And so we've got different masters, and it's a mind shift that marketers have to make. It's not just us that has to make it, but it's the whole business that has to make it. So when we talk about a brand newsroom, we're really talking about you creating your own media publication. Okay, and I've worked in strategy for years. I had a company called Global Copywriting. I always think you have to get to the strategy right first, and I'm not going to go into strategy, but there are 3 elements to a content marketing strategy that will put you in utopia, and they're all super important for a brand newsroom. So the first thing that we want to talk about, or that we want to consider, is what is the business problem that you're trying to solve? The publication, the brand newsroom, should be trying to solve a business problem for your company. Okay, it's the beginning of your editorial mission statement. And the trap that we get into as marketers is we're often thinking about marketing objectives and how we're going to measure success. So I'll give you an example that, an early example that Dan and I worked on together that didn't work very well.
Don't blame me for this.
Well, I was in charge. I was in charge of this one. So our client was a mining association in Western Australia. We were hired about 2010. There was a huge mining boom out in Western Australia. They were short of skills. And when they hired us to do this brand newsroom, and we did a big website with all kinds of articles, we did a blog, we were on every social channel, we had a newsletter, we grew everything organically, we put no money behind it, it was completely full-play content marketing. And they said to me, if you can help people break into the mining industry, you will be on a winning ticket. Well, sure enough, we were. I mean, the organic growth on our Facebook page was crazy. We were working 24/7. We were publishing every day. At the end of the first year, the big ticket for the whole program was a careers expo, and the customer wanted 2,000 people to attend this expo. Went over 2 days on a weekend. They were going to have all their clients there to meet all of these people that were coming to get mining jobs. So we had 1,000 people pre-register. So we felt really happy about that. On the day, the Saturday, there was a line so long out on the highway in front of the conference center that they had to get police come in. With 14,000 people show up over 2 days. Woohoo! Content marketing works. Until Monday. Content works. The marketing sucked because the association got nothing but complaints from their customers because they didn't want people that were trying to break into the mining industry. They wanted passive candidates. They wanted engineers, geologists, metallurgists, highly skilled people. And we delivered them 14,000 people that had never worked in mining before. Right? So that was a problem. So we weren't focused on the right business problem. Okay? Leah told you about, we won an award in 2016 for something called Traction News. Our client sells websites for tire dealers in America. It's a Perth business, Perth, Australia, the guy that owns it, but everything he sells is in the US. This is his product. This is his editorial mission. This is his business goal. And it's basically to help his customers run more successful tire businesses, to become more profitable. Not a single thing about selling more websites. Okay, the business objective he wanted, he knew that if he could make his tire dealers more successful, that he was going to have some credibility with them. And that becomes the editorial mission, and then that is the filter that we put everything through, and that gives the managing editor his direction too. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't even have to talk about this slide because I've been in 42 presentations since yesterday that talked about the importance of getting management buy-in, starting with Joe Polizzi, Marcus Sheridan said it, Doug Kessler said it, everybody's saying it. It's the prerequisite for every other step. Okay, and the thing I think that's important about this, and this is how I always think of it, until you've got executive buy-in, you don't have a license to operate a brand newsroom. Okay, the build and they will come mentality doesn't work. It ends in tears. It's almost always marketing's tears. Okay, and a good example I've got, there's this fantastic brand newsroom built in Australia. Matt Allison, who was the global head of Bupa, that did this newsroom called the Blue Room. Just as he was getting to launch, he started to get some really concerning questions from his executive team, and he realized that he hadn't done an internal sales job. So he suspended everything he did for 9 months. It was a really big expense, and went ahead and got internal buy-in from everybody before he launched. And then when he launched, it was successful. And I heard him tell that story at Content Marketing World in Sydney. So I'm not telling any stories. He told it out of place. But that's really typical. But I think that, we might get budget. We might get some people that are interested in doing it. Marketing gets this stuff all over the place. But it's really got to be, you need the license to operate approval from not only for budget, but also from the rest of your executive team. So they will leave you alone and let you go do your thing. And then you need to get your messaging right. And this is another lesson I learned at Content Marketing World, probably in about 2012, when I heard Adele Ravella speak about her buyer personas. And did anybody go to Adele's thing? She's fantastic. Her book has helped me so much. But she said what marketers have to do is find the intersection between what you want to say and what your audience wants to hear. And when we're talking about a brand newsroom, we're really focused on the audience. So we have to get that part of it really right. Okay? The problem is a lot of times, as marketers, we get excited by good content, and there's plenty of good content, but if it doesn't fit into the editorial mission, it's not going to be good for you. And a lot of content we're often asked to publish from the business might not fit into the brand newsroom. So you have to be really strong about that. Okay? Good content, it doesn't work in a brand newsroom. You need everything that fits into your mission. And I'll give you, this is an example of what Traction News looks like. No place on this does it say about the importance of websites for tire dealers, right? But they're talking about new product. They profile personalities in the industry. They attend events. They talk about recalls. They talk about skirmishes and mergers and acquisitions. The guy doesn't sell a single website on the back of any of these articles. But these articles are so good that when Matt Walker, who's the publisher, travels in America to visit customers, he's had customers say to him, Matt, if you really want to understand the American tire industry, you better be reading this. And they don't even realize he's bankrolling it. Okay? That's a success. Okay? So I've been throwing out some roles, and I don't want to get too much into the roles and responsibilities because it's going to look different everywhere, but there's some really key parts of a brand newsroom. Your team is, the publisher is your business. They're the person bankrolling it. It might be your CMO. It might be your executive team. It might be your parent company. They are the defender of the business. They are going to want to know, how is this product and all the time and effort we're putting into it helping my business? Your managing editor, though, is the one that's running the publication. They're running the newsroom. And they are the defender of the audience. And these two, again, if you don't have buy-in, are going to butt heads. There can be a lot of conflict, but if there's trust between these two, it works really well. And then you go down and you've got editors and content creators and proofreaders and copy editors, and this is where a secret weapon fits into it. So does that make sense? Okay. Again, you've got to have those 3 building blocks in place to get to this point, and that will set you up. It's so fun to rush into it, but it's going to cause problems. Dan?
Okay, coming up with ideas. This is something journalists spend every day doing. So I'm going to take you to a very dark place. Darker than that. No, not that dark. Okay. I'm going to take you inside the mind of a journalist. And this is me, as a journalist. And that's me standing in front of number 10 Downing Street about 2 prime ministers ago, which is about 4 weeks ago. I tell you what, though, I thought I looked really dapper here. Sarah hated that beard.
I didn't like that look at all.
I don't care. I'm verified.
Well, he's a princess.
He's a princess. You know who the queen is, though? Oprah. Oprah's the queen. Sarah thinks I think I'm Oprah. See? Oh, the Queen. There we go. Okay, so this is how to generate content ideas like a journalist or a queen. The first thing...
Can I just interrupt?
Oh.
I said to Dan before we started, just so you guys know what I'm dealing with, because he's taken a couple licks at me, I said we need to get some slides together for our talk. Can you do that? So just keep that in mind as you go through the next 20 slides. Go ahead.
Curiosity. So this is such an obvious thing, but this is about putting yourself in the shoes of your audience and working out what it is that they are actually interested in. Get out on the factory floor. Talk to your people. Talk to the staff. Talk about them, what they do, who they are, where they come from, what their actual job is. Talk to your tech guys and your geek guys and find out the real nuts and bolts of how your company works or how your client's company works. You will find dozens of interesting content ideas on the back of the conversations you can have with your best asset, your own people. It doesn't even cost you anything, especially if you do it in the lunchroom. Don't get them to take time off. You can also interrogate the curiosity of your friends and family. If you've got someone you know who's basically the right demographic for your audience, ask them what they would want to know about your product or service or whatever it is. You'd be surprised how fruitful that can be as a place for content ideas. And journalists are doing that every day, every day. Next is contacts. Journalists live and die by their contact book and how well they work their contact book and grow their contacts. It's simple networking, but if there's an influencer or an industry leader that you think has value, get in touch with them. I don't mean follow them on LinkedIn. I mean actually get in touch with them. Ring them. Have a cup of coffee with them. Talk to them about what you're trying to achieve with your brand newsroom. Get them to sort of buy in. Then you contact them every couple of months, see if they've got any content ideas for you. After you've written a few things, they will start coming to you with content ideas. That's the best bit, because then you don't have to come up with the best ideas from these people who are really ingrained and entrenched in the industry and have all this respect and value. You can leverage their reputations. They're bringing you stories. Also, just on that point, get yourself put on press release distribution lists and media distribution lists. You're a publisher now. You're the media now. If you've got a brand newsroom, you can absolutely get those press releases coming to you. You might not want to publish what's on the press release, but you might read it and you might get like 2 or 3 content ideas off it. So it's worth doing. On calendar events, I won't bore you with this too much because it's pretty obvious. It's things like Christmas and tax time and those sorts of things where you can plan well ahead for the content that your audience might be interested in. There's also things called off-calendar events. These are the things you can't plan for. So it might be, an oil price hike, which, spikes the price of gasoline, and what effect does that have on your audience? Those sorts of things. A trade war or something like that. What effect does that have on your industry?
Hurricane.
A hurricane is a good example. What made you think of that? It doesn't have to be big things though, like the latest, whatever the kids are doing on TikTok. Like if that's who your audience is, you can write about that kind of stuff. But the point is that you need to be reactive. You need to be responding to what's happening in the real world and getting that content out really quickly in a way that's interesting and relevant to your audience. Value adding. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much now because I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. This is actually a slide, I promise. That's the Missile Orbital, which is in the Olympic Park in London, and I can actually see that when I walk out the front of my house. That's at the end of my street. So don't tell Sarah I paid for a license for a photo I could have taken myself, but I did. So the idea, you're going to have a swipe?
No.
No? Okay.
Your slideshow.
So value adding is the idea that you take the story a bit further to give your audience something extra. So at Traction News, a lot of our competitors would just take a press release from a tyre company, slap it up, maybe not even change it, maybe not even correct the terrible spelling from the tyre company. And that meant that, our audience could all go read that same story somewhere else. But instead, we would always rewrite it, ask some more questions, maybe get someone to provide a comment, an expert from the field, so that we were providing that little bit more to our audience, which meant our audience wanted to come to us instead of going to our competitors. Commission original research. Smart kid. Send the adult down the slide first. Check if it's safe. So survey, a poll, anything that you can do that means you have original data that you can share that your audience will be interested in is worthwhile. We have a client in the mining recruitment space, not the place Sarah was talking about before, a different client. They have a poll on their website every month. They get between 600 and 1,200 respondents every month. Off the back of that, we create content. That content goes up on the website, it goes out in their emails, and it quite often gets picked up by the local media and the trade publications as well, which is money for jam as far as I'm concerned.